The first question is just to get to know you a little bit more. So if you could introduce yourself and share what kind of brands you work with, your role and responsibilities, that would be really interesting.
Sure. My sweet spot seems to be B2B social media and organic social campaigns and thought leadership building for executives. That's been a specialty that I've done really well, like growing some audiences as much as 800% or more. Most of my clients tend to be very small businesses. I have worked with some bigger businesses, not as suited for it personally. I'm not great with hierarchy all the time.
Okay, makes sense.
Hierarchy only makes sense if the good people are at the top.
Mm,
That's all I'm
mm,
saying.
mm.
I don't know if you know how I got into being in social. My background is kind of weird. I was in PR and marketing prior to the internet because I am old. I then started writing a personal blog that got really famous about my infertility journal. It got famous circa 2008. All the stuff I learned about social media promotion, I first learned promoting myself. And then as I walked away from the blogosphere in 2015, I was already had started the process of switching over to working with companies, doing their social instead. I've hopped around a lot. I've had my own agency since 2008, but I've worked in-house. I spent about 3 years working in-house at another agency in New York and learned a lot.
So yeah, crossovers from traditional to digital, I suppose, given the focus of this research on the future of organic growth, it could be SEO, it could be social media. When was the last time you had to implement organic growth for your customers or yourself?
All of them. I actually have a partner that does all the paid side. I'm only organic personally.
Wow.
I could do ads. I write them, I design them, but I'm not going to be doing the targeting and all that stuff. My partner, Joanne Rogan, is deeply analytical and never misses a single detail. She's ideal for that side of things.
Could you describe a bit more how you go about it?
Most of the time, I'm working with such small businesses that all they can afford is organic. What I do with them is I believe the organic gives you great raw data for informing your paid content later. Once they see the success of the organic, generally, I see them willing to consider ads. Most of the time, super, super targeted. A specific discount, a specific deal, company change announcement, that kind of stuff. But when they start to see that growth, they obviously want more. Plus, they understand that without paid, you're always battling the algorithm. Doing some ads, even if there's a few and they're not that expensive, if you do that, it rises your organic content in the algorithm as well. So what I do usually is I spend 3 to 6 months doing the organic first. And then I would bring Joanne in and ask her to look at the data, determine what she thinks the best route to go is, to determine the best ad campaigns, the best targeting, and all that stuff. And then we work together to create the assets.
Makes sense, yeah. And I suppose
You
what's
should know I'm a very small shop and 2 partners.
boutique, yes.
Boutique is generous.
And
Studio apartment would be a better description.
let's create a new category. And in those steps you mentioned, what's the most difficult?
Probably the number one problem I have with any client with organic marketing is they believe it's direct sales. They're just convinced it's going to work just like ads and they're going to get sales directly. It doesn't matter how many conversations we have about first click and last click attribution. We talk about the differences with organic versus paid, about reputation and trust and awareness and community rather than just lead gen. If you want that, you need paid. You can't do it with organic. If you want to grow your thought leadership, establish yourself as the knowledgeable high point in this industry, I feel like I need to lay the foundation with a good organic program so that anytime anybody lands on their stuff, they are like, wow, I need to check them out. I don't want them to ads people recognize, acknowledge, and process in about half a second, if
Mhm.
that. Probably a millionth of a second, because most of us just glaze right over them. Organic social media posts, they are trusted higher more often than paid. People engage with them more. I think my biggest struggle has been with saying, I can grow your audience a certain amount each year, but I can't guarantee that's going to hit your bottom line sales. Sometimes it takes 2 years of great organic social to really start seeing results. It's a very long tail.
It resonates a lot, what you're saying. If you had unlimited resources like time, money, people, what would you change in that process?
I always have limited resources. One of my sweet spots is working with clients who have nothing, like barely a logo, and they have no assets, no visual assets. And going in and starting that up from scratch is like my favorite. I almost prefer that to having solid nonsense, only use these things.
If you have unlimited resources, time, people, money, would you change anything? It sounds like you're fortunate to have unlimited resources with clients anyway, but maybe there's something you would have a magic wand and wave. What would that be?
To restore the internet to the way it was in 2018 before the big Facebook algorithm change.
Oh, great. Interesting.
But that's just because then people actually saw your stuff. We went from having 40 to 60% visibility on every post to 5 to 10.
That's shocking.
Maybe it might have been earlier. It might have been like 2015. I'd have to look up the actual.
It's because they changed it to prefer ads.
They're always going to show stuff they're getting paid for more. But what it really did was change the algorithm to show you what's most popular. That's most accurate. So they wanted to get more eyes. But I'm interested to see what Meta is going to do now. It seems like they're really just not interested in that channel anymore. They're exploring the AI and a bunch of other stuff more.
And I guess, yeah, the acquisitions that they've been making, it's almost like they might acquire some channels instead of develop their own, maybe properly. Yeah, interesting. And I suppose, like, is there anything else you would add while we're in this headspace of like a future of organic growth and all that?
This is going to sound strange, but when I first started working professionally, I talked a lot about being a storyteller and the power of storytelling and how important it was for brands. That completely vanished from the conversations probably by about 2020. Nobody was talking about storytelling again. Maybe earlier, maybe 2018, 2017. Because what happened then is when TikTok launched, it changed the game again. Things got hyper polished in social from brands too. And I think that was also a bit of a setback in authenticity. So I think it's funny when you say, what would I mostly want to remove the blockades in front of me from getting the work to get the best results.
Yeah, makes sense. Easier said than done for all of
I'm
us.
kidding.
No, but that's really interesting.